The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with hundreds of different voices. Creatures from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats, waiting for the meeting to begin. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few looked like walking rocks. They all belonged to the Galactic Council, the group that decided which new species could join their big family of star-traveling races. Captain Lee Hyan-woo stood quietly near the back of the hall. His dark uniform was simple and clean. No fancy decorations or bright colors like the aliens around him. He watched everything with calm eyes, taking mental notes of who seemed important and who looked friendly. "The humans are so small," whispered a blue-skinned delegate to her neighbor. "And they only brought one tiny ship." Lee heard the comment but didn't react. The Soul's Pride was indeed small compared to the massive vessels parked outside. It was a diplomatic ship, built for talking, not fighting. That was the point. Ambassador Park Ji-hye walked to the center of the hall. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back neatly. Her voice was strong but respectful when she spoke. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began. "I am Park Ji-hye, speaking for the human race. We come in peace, seeking friendship and trade with all civilized worlds." Chancellor Vexatai moved forward on his many legs. He was old, even by galactic standards. His shell was covered in scars from countless battles in his younger days. Now, he ruled the council with wisdom earned through centuries of experience. "Another young species," Vexatai said with a tired voice. "Tell us, humans, what makes you special. What can you offer that we haven't seen before?" Park smiled politely. "We offer hard work, creativity, and loyalty to our friends. Humans are good at solving problems and building things that last." Some delegates laughed softly. They had heard similar promises from dozens of new species over the years. Most turned out to be disappointing. Admiral Kriegnox stood up from his seat. He was huge, even for his warrior race. Thick armor covered his body, and his 4 arms were strong enough to crush metal. "What about military strength?" he demanded. "How will you defend yourselves? How will you help defend others?" Park looked at Captain Lee for a moment. Something passed between them, a silent conversation that lasted only seconds. "We believe in peace first," Park said carefully. "But humans will always protect their families and friends. We hope it never comes to that." "Hope!" Kriegnox laughed loudly. "Hope doesn't stop pirates or invasion fleets. Show us your weapons. Show us your warships." "Our escort vessel has basic defensive systems," Park replied. "We came here to talk, not to threaten anyone." The delegates whispered among themselves. The humans seemed weak, just like most new species. They would probably end up working in mines or farms, doing simple jobs for the more advanced races. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin sat in the human delegation area, listening carefully. She was younger than the others, with bright eyes that missed nothing. Her job was to observe and learn about galactic technology. So far, she was not impressed. Their computers were slow, their energy systems were wasteful, and their weapons looked like toys compared to what humans had built back home. "We will consider your request," Chancellor Vexatai announced. "You may have provisional membership. While we evaluate your culture and capabilities, do not leave this system without permission." Park bowed respectfully. "Thank you for this opportunity. We will prove ourselves worthy of full membership." As the meeting ended, delegates filed out in small groups. Most ignored the humans completely. A few gave them curious looks, wondering what kind of work they might be good for. Captain Lee activated his communication device once they were alone. The message was short and coded, but its meaning was clear to those who needed to know. "Package. Delivered to Kepler Station," came the reply from deep space. "Project Colossus online and ready for deployment." Lee closed the device and looked at his teammates. Park raised an eyebrow, a silent question in her expression. "Insurance policy," Lee said quietly. Let's hope we never need it. Outside the station, alien ships of every size and shape hung in space like a metal forest. Massive dreadnoughts from ancient empires, sleek cruisers from trading nations, and strange vessels that defied easy description. They all dwarfed the small human ship floating among them. Commander Choi Min-ho piloted the Soul's Pride away from the station with steady hands. He had been flying ships since he was young. First in Earth's atmosphere, then between planets, and finally among the stars. But today felt different. Today, humanity had taken its first real step into galactic politics. How do you think it went? Choi asked over the ship's communication system. About as expected, Park replied from her cabin. They see us as primitives who just learned to fly between stars. Harmless and probably useful for simple labor. Good, said Dr. Yoon from her lab. The longer they think that, the better. Lee sat in his command chair, watching the alien ships through the main screen. Each one represented a civilization thousands of years older than humanity. Each one had conquered other worlds, built great empires, and considered themselves masters of the galaxy. None of them knew what humans were really capable of. The journey back to human space would take several days. During that time, Lee knew his crew would analyze everything they had seen and heard. Every alien technology, every political alliance, every potential weakness would be carefully studied. Humanity had spent 200 years preparing for this moment. Not just the diplomatic meeting, but everything that might come after. They had learned from Earth's history. When different civilizations met, the stronger one usually dominated the weaker one. The key was making sure you were the stronger one. As the Soul's Pride jumped to faster-than-light travel, its departure barely registered on alien sensors. Just another small ship from another small species, heading home to report their minor success to their primitive leaders. If those aliens had been able to detect the quantum-encrypted message that left the ship just before it jumped, they might have been more concerned. The message was simple. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2 preparations. But they couldn't detect it. Their technology wasn't advanced enough. That would turn out to be a very important difference. 6 months passed since the humans joined the Galactic Council. In that time, they had done exactly what everyone expected. They traded basic goods, sent small diplomatic missions, and stayed in their assigned corner of space. The galaxy hardly noticed them. Warlord Thakmor studied the holographic display in his command center. Red dots showed human settlements scattered across a dozen star systems. Each dot represented thousands of human lives that meant nothing to him. They multiply like insects, he growled to his aide. Thakmor was a hegemony commander, part of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. His people had ruled through strength for over 3,000 years. Time to teach these newcomers their place. The aide, a smaller creature with nervous eyes, shifted uncomfortably. The Council has not authorized military action against the humans, Warlord. The Council doesn't need to know, Thakmor replied with a cruel smile. We're just conducting a training exercise. If some human ships happen to get in our way, that's their problem. On Earth, General Kim Tae-ho received the alert in his underground command center. The message was urgent but coded in case enemy agents were listening. Human colony ships had been intercepted by hegemony forces near the border systems. Kim was an old soldier who had fought in the wars that united Earth under one government. His hair was white now, but his mind was still sharp. He understood what the hegemony was really doing. Testing us, he said to his staff. They want to see how we react when they push us around. 3 colony ships, reported his intelligence officer. 50,000 civilians total. The hegemony has them surrounded but hasn't fired yet. Kim nodded grimly. This was expected. Every new species in the galaxy faced this same test. The strong races would push until they found resistance. If you pushed back too hard, they destroyed you. If you didn't push back at all, they enslaved you. Finding the right balance was the key to survival. Get me a secure line to Dr. Yoon, Kim ordered. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin was working late in her laboratory when the call came through. Around her, dozens of scientists and engineers were putting finishing touches on humanity's secret project. They had been working for decades, using knowledge that no other species possessed. General, she answered, not looking up from her calculations. I assume this is about our visitors in the border systems. Can Colossus be ready for deployment? Kim asked directly. Yoon paused in her work. This was the question they had all hoped never to hear. The first unit completed trials last week. All systems are green, but General, once we show them what we can do. I know, Kim interrupted. There's no going back after that. But they've forced our hand. How many ships should I authorize? Kim thought carefully. Too many would look like overkill. Too few might not be enough to send the right message. One Colossus-class vessel, standard escort formation. Yoon nodded and began entering commands into her computer. Far away in the Kepler system, massive machines began to wake up from their long sleep. Commander Choi Min-ho stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Incheon's Hammer. It was nothing like the small diplomatic vessel he had piloted to Nexus Prime. This ship was enormous, stretching over 2 kilometers from nose to tail. But more important than its size was what it carried inside. Receiving deployment orders, reported his communications officer. We're to proceed to the Arcturus system immediately. Choi settled into his command chair. He had trained for this moment for years, running simulations and practice drills, but this would be real. Signal the escort ships. We depart in 1 hour. In the Arcturus system, Warlord Thakmor was enjoying himself. The human colony ships hung helplessly in space, surrounded by his powerful warships. Inside those ships, frightened families huddled together, wondering if they would live to see another day. Send another message to the human government, Thakmor ordered. Tell them their people will be released when humanity acknowledges hegemony authority in this sector. The human response came faster than expected. Instead of the usual diplomatic protests, it was a simple military communication. Hegemony forces will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Thakmor laughed so hard that his subordinates worried about his sanity. Consequences? From them? What are they going to do, send angry letters? But his sensor operator looked confused. Sir, I'm detecting new contacts entering the system. Unknown ship types. How many? Thakmor asked, still chuckling. 12 ships total. 1 very large vessel and 11 smaller escorts. Thakmor looked at his tactical display. 12 ships against his fleet of 200. Even for humans, this seemed like suicide. Are they serious? Do they really think 12 ships can challenge the might of the hegemony? Admiral Kang So-young commanded the human response fleet from her flagship, the Busan's Thunder. She was younger than General Kim, but just as experienced, having earned her rank in the asteroid belt campaigns. Unlike the older generation of officers, she had trained specifically for galactic warfare. Enemy fleet composition? She asked her tactical officer. 200 ships, mostly cruiser and destroyer class, standard hegemony loadout with plasma cannons and energy shields. They're arranged in a classic intimidation formation around our colony ships. Kang studied the display with professional interest. The hegemony formation was designed to look impressive, not to fight efficiently. They expected their enemies to surrender at the sight of such overwhelming numbers. Signal Commander Choi, she ordered. He may begin power-up sequence when ready. On the Incheon's Hammer, Choi received the authorization with mixed feelings. Once he activated the ship's main weapon, everything would change. The galaxy would know what humans could really do. Beginning Colossus main cannon charge, announced his weapons officer. Estimated time to full power, 8 minutes. Deep inside the massive ship, machinery that had never been seen before began to work. Energy flowed through crystalline conduits, building to levels that would have amazed galactic scientists. The very laws of physics seemed to bend around the weapon as it prepared to fire. Thakmor noticed the energy readings first. What are they doing over there? Those power levels are impossible. His science officer was frantically checking and rechecking his instruments. Sir, the readings must be wrong. No ship that size could generate this much energy. Our sensors must be malfunctioning. Fix them, Thakmor snapped. But deep down, he was beginning to feel something he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The human fleet maintained its position, neither advancing nor retreating. They simply waited, as if they had all the time in the world. Their silence was somehow more threatening than any battle cry. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, his voice shaking. "Energy levels are still climbing. Whatever they're charging up, it's beyond anything in our database." Thakmor looked at the small human fleet on his screen. 12 ships. Just 12. But something about their confidence made his stomach turn cold. "All ships, prepare for battle," he ordered. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." If he had known what was about to happen, he might have chosen different words. On Earth, Dr. Yoon watched the tactical display in her command center. Real-time data flowed in from the Arcturus system, showing every detail of the confrontation. Years of planning and preparation had led to this moment. "Colossus main weapon at 90% charge," she announced to the room. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored systems that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. General Kim stood beside her, his face grave. "Once we fire, the galaxy changes forever." "It was going to change anyway," Yoon replied. "At least this way, we control how." The space around Arcturus Prime filled with tension as two fleets faced each other. Warlord Thakmor commanded 200 of the hegemony's finest warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. Across from him, 12 human vessels waited, quietly in the darkness. Captain Oh Dong-hyun stood calmly on the bridge of the Incheon's hammer. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, monitoring systems that no other species had ever imagined. The main weapon was almost ready. "Energy at 95%, reported his weapons officer. "All targeting systems locked on the enemy flagship." Oh nodded. "Open a channel to the hegemony fleet." Thakmor's image appeared on the main screen, his face twisted with anger and disbelief. Behind him, alarms were sounding as his sensors tried to make sense of the impossible energy readings. "I am Captain Oh Dong-hyun of the human vessel Incheon's hammer," Oh said politely. "You have 30 seconds to release our civilians and withdraw from this system." Thakmor's laughter echoed across space. 30 seconds? You're outnumbered 200 to 12. Surrender now, and I might let some of your people live. 20 seconds, Oh replied, his voice unchanged. On the human colony ships, families pressed against windows to watch the confrontation. They couldn't hear the radio messages, but they could see the massive human warship facing down the entire hegemony fleet. Some prayed quietly, others held their children close. 10 seconds, Oh announced. Thakmor stopped laughing. Something about the human captain's calm voice made him nervous. "You're bluffing! No species would attack when so badly outnumbered." 5 seconds. Admiral Kang watched from her flagship as the final countdown began. Around her, the bridge crew held their breath. This moment would be remembered for thousands of years. "Time's up," Oh said simply. "Fire." The Incheon's hammer unleashed its main weapon. The beam that erupted from the ship's forward section was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't the bright plasma bolts or energy lances that galactic armies used. This was something else entirely, a focused stream of raw physics that seemed to tear reality itself. The beam struck Thakmor's flagship dead center. For a split second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive vessel simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not exploded. It just wasn't there anymore, along with 15 other ships that had been too close. Sensor operator Lim Jae-sung watched from his monitoring station in the outer system. His job was to record everything for galactic intelligence, but his hands shook as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. "Impossible," he whispered. "No weapon can do that." The hegemony fleet scattered in panic. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries fled like frightened children. But the human vessels moved to intercept them with impossible speed and precision. Commander Choi piloted the Soul's Defender through the chaos, his ship dancing between enemy fire with grace that defied physics. The human escorts weren't just fast. They moved as if they could predict where every enemy shot would go. "How are they doing that?" screamed a hegemony gunner as his shots missed again and again. The answer was simple, but devastating. Human computers could calculate the movement of every particle in the battle zone, predicting enemy actions before they happened. What looked like magic was just better mathematics. One by one, the hegemony ships fell silent. Not destroyed like their flagship, but disabled with surgical precision. Human weapons carved through their shields and armor like they weren't even there, targeting only weapon systems and engines. Admiral Kang monitored the battle from her command center. 47 minutes since engagement began. Enemy fleet neutralized. Begin rescue operations. This was the part that would confuse galactic observers more than anything else. As soon as the fighting stopped, human ships rushed to help the crews. Of disabled enemy vessels, medical teams and rescue shuttles launched immediately. "Sir," called a hegemony survivor over the radio, "why are you helping us? We tried to kill you." "Because you're injured," replied the human medic simply. "That's what we do." Dr. Yoon watched the aftermath from her control room on Earth. Data streamed in from the battle zone, confirming what they had all hoped. The Colossus weapon worked perfectly. More importantly, the galaxy had finally seen what humans could do. "Send the recording to every major news network," she ordered. "Full tactical analysis to follow in 6 hours." Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched the footage in stunned silence. The mighty hegemony fleet, destroyed in less than a day, hour by 12 human ships. Weapons that made their most advanced technology look like stone knives. Ships that moved like living things instead of metal hulks. Chancellor Vex Tai received the first reports in his private chambers on Nexus Prime. His ancient mind struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. The small, harmless humans had just demonstrated military power beyond anything in galactic history. "Get me the human ambassador," he ordered. "Immediately." Ambassador Park Ji-hai was already on her way to the station. Her diplomatic ship, the same Soul's Pride that had carried her to the first council meeting, approached Nexus Prime with a very different reception this time. "Human vessel, you are cleared for immediate docking," came the urgent message from station control. "Priority, berth 7. Security escort standing by." Park smiled grimly. 6 months ago, they had made her wait for hours. Now they couldn't get her aboard fast enough. The truth was spreading through galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected. Sensor recordings from dozens of ships painted a clear picture. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated technological superiority that made every other military force obsolete. Admiral Kriegnox, the warrior who had questioned human strength at their first meeting, sat in his planning room surrounded by tactical displays. Every analysis reached the same impossible conclusion. They could conquer the entire galaxy, he said to his staff. All of it. Every world, every fleet, every civilization. Nothing we have could stop them. "What do we do?" asked his aide. Kriegnox stared at the human ship formations on his screen. 12 vessels had destroyed a fleet of 200. How many more ships like that did the humans have? How much more powerful were their weapons? "We pray they're as merciful as they claim to be," he replied. Back in the Arcturus system, human crews continued their rescue operations. Every survivor from the hegemony fleet was treated with the same care as human casualties. Medical facilities worked around the clock to save lives that their own weapons had put in danger. Captain O supervised the operations from his bridge. The Incheon's hammer had powered down its main weapon, but the energy signature still lingered in space like a warning. "Status report," he requested. 1,700 hegemony survivors recovered, his rescue coordinator replied. "All are receiving medical attention. Several have requested to speak with you personally." "About what?" "They want to know why we're helping them." O nodded. This was always the hard part to explain to other species. Humans fought when they had to, but they took no pleasure in causing suffering. "Tell them it's because we can," he said. "Because we have the power to help, so we do." As word of the battle spread, emergency sessions were called on hundreds of worlds. Military leaders who had never known defeat scrambled to understand how 12 ships had accomplished the impossible. But perhaps the most important reaction came from the thousands of smaller, weaker civilizations that had lived under hegemony, rule for generations. For the first time in centuries, they began to hope. Change was coming to the galaxy. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of humanity had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 6 hours straight. Representatives from 800 civilizations filled the Great Hall, their voices creating a chaos of fear, anger, and confusion. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Park Ji-hai, calm as a stone in a river. Chancellor Vex Tai banged his ceremonial staff against the floor, trying to restore order. His ancient shell trembled with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with desperate intensity. "The question before us is simple," he announced when the noise finally died down. "What do we do about the humans?" "Destroy them before they destroy us," shouted Admiral Kriegnox from his seat. The warrior's 4 arms gestured wildly as he spoke. "We've all seen the battle recordings. They have weapons that can erase ships from existence." A wave of agreement swept through the hall. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves nodding together in shared terror. Ambassador Park stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye in the hall followed her movement. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner. "Honored delegates," she began, "humanity has no desire to rule over anyone. We simply want to live in peace and trade freely with our neighbors." "Peace?" Kriegnox laughed bitterly. "You just annihilated an entire fleet." "We disabled a fleet that was threatening innocent civilians," Park corrected. "Every survivor was rescued and given medical care. If we wanted to destroy the hegemony, we could have done it from the beginning." This statement sent a chill through the assembly. The implications were terrifying. If humans could destroy the most powerful military force in the galaxy, what could they do to everyone else? Dr. Yoon Soo-jin activated her holographic projector. From her position in the human delegation area, technical diagrams filled the air above the assembly, showing the basic principles behind human technology. "Your energy systems waste 70% of their power through heat loss," she explained in a matter-of-fact tone. "Your ship hulls use metals that are strong but brittle under stress. Your computers process information in sequence instead of parallel patterns." Murmurs of outrage filled the hall. How dare this young human criticize technologies that had been perfected over millennia? Dr. Yoon continued without pause. "These aren't criticisms. They're observations. You've built your technology around what you thought was possible. We built ours around what was necessary." Prime Minister Han Ji-woo watched the proceedings from Earth through a secure communication link. As humanity's elected leader, she had the responsibility of guiding her species through this historic moment. The decisions made in the next few hours would shape the galaxy's future. "Dr. Yoon," she said through the link, "show them the medical advances." New diagrams appeared in the hall's holographic display. These showed human medical technology that could repair genetic damage, regrow lost limbs, and extend lifespans by centuries. "This technology will be shared freely with all peaceful civilizations," Park announced. "Along with our advances in energy production agriculture, and space travel. Chancellor Vextai's ancient eyes widened. His own species had spent thousands of years trying to solve the problems that humans appeared to have conquered easily. Why? He asked. Why share such valuable knowledge? Because that's what friends do, Park replied simply. They help each other. Commander Nam Hyejin stood in the medical bay of her ship, the Daegu's Hope, watching human doctors work alongside alien physicians to treat hegemony survivors. The cooperation was awkward at first, but it was working. Your bone structure is fascinating, a human doctor said to his hegemony patient. The calcium density is much higher than ours. That must make you very resistant to impact injuries. The alien warrior looked confused. You study us to find our weaknesses? No, the doctor smiled. I study you to learn how to help you heal faster. This conversation was happening on dozens of ships across the galaxy. Human medical teams had spread out immediately after the battle, offering aid to anyone who needed it. They asked for nothing in return. Back on Nexus Prime, the debate continued with increasing desperation. Some delegates demanded immediate military action against humanity. Others argued for diplomatic solutions. A few suggested complete surrender. We could unite every fleet in the galaxy, suggested a delegate from the warrior caste Zephyrians. Surely our combined forces could match 12 human ships? Dr. Yoon looked up from her datapad with something that might have been sympathy. Would you like to know how many Colossus-class vessels we've built? The hall fell silent. This was the question everyone wanted to ask but feared to hear answered. 57, Dr. Yoon said calmly, with production continuing at a rate of 2 per month. The silence stretched for long minutes. 57 ships like the one that had destroyed the hegemony fleet. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Former warlord Thakmor, now a prisoner aboard the human ship Soul's Mercy, listened to the council proceedings through his cell's communication system. His flagship was gone, his fleet scattered, and his career destroyed. But he was alive, which was more than he had expected. Warlord, said the human guard outside his cell, you have a visitor. Captain Oh Dong-hyun entered the detention area. The man who had ordered the destruction of Thakmor's ship looked tired but not triumphant. Come to gloat? Thakmor growled. I came to apologize, Oh replied, surprising the alien completely. I'm sorry we had to hurt your people. I'm sorry. Your friends died. We gave you every chance to withdraw peacefully. Thakmor stared at his captor in confusion. You're apologizing? To me? I threatened your civilians. Yes, Oh said simply. And I responded with violence. That makes me responsible for the consequences, even when I had no choice. This was the part of human psychology that no other species could understand. Humans could be utterly ruthless in battle, then genuinely remorseful about the necessity of violence. They saw no contradiction in these feelings. On hundreds of worlds, military commanders reviewed the battle footage for the 1,000th time. The human ships moved with coordination that suggested a hive mind, but intelligence reports confirmed they were individuals making independent decisions. How do they communicate so effectively? Wondered a Centaurian admiral. The answer was both. Simple and revolutionary. Human computer networks didn't just share information, they shared understanding. When one human captain learned something, every other captain in the fleet instantly knew it too. As the council session dragged on, smaller civilizations began to speak up. Species that had been silent under hegemony rule found their voices. We welcome human protection, declared the representative from Kepler Colony. For 200 years, we've paid tribute to the hegemony. Perhaps it's time for a change. More voices joined in agreement. The galaxy's downtrodden masses saw humanity not as conquerors, but as liberators. Chancellor Vextai realized that the old order was crumbling before his eyes. The balance of power that had existed for millennia was shifting in a matter of hours. What are your terms? He asked Ambassador Park wearily. Park consulted her datapad, though she had memorized the proposals weeks ago. Complete disarmament of aggressive military forces. Establishment of galactic law enforcement under joint command. Free trade and movement between all worlds. Protection for smaller civilizations. And if we refuse? Park's expression didn't change. Then you refuse. We won't force anyone to accept our help. But we also won't allow anyone to harm innocent people. The message was clear. Humanity offered partnership to those who wanted it and protection to those who needed it. But the days of strong civilizations bullying weak ones were over. As the session finally ended, delegates filed out in small groups, whispering urgently among themselves. The galaxy they had known was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen. Ambassador Park remained in the chamber long after the others had left. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as humanity tried to build something better from the wreckage of the old order. Change was never easy, but it was necessary, and humanity had proven they had the power to make it happen. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Arcturus. The galaxy looked very different now. President Lee Soo-young stood at the observation deck of Nexus Prime, looking out at the space around the station. Instead of the chaotic mix of military vessels that once crowded the area, she saw orderly formations of ships from dozens of different worlds. Human vessels flew alongside alien ones, their crews working together on joint missions. "The morning briefing, Madam President," said her aide, offering her a datapad. Lee accepted the report and scanned through the daily updates. Piracy down by 93%. Trade volume up by 400%. No military conflicts reported anywhere in the galaxy. It was almost too good to be true. "Any problems?" she asked. "The usual complaints from former hegemony worlds," the aide replied. "They're having trouble adjusting to the new labor laws." Lee nodded. The transition hadn't been easy for everyone. Species that had built their economies on conquest and slavery struggled to find new ways to survive. But humanity was patient. Change took time. Admiral Kang So-young commanded the combined galactic fleet from her flagship, the United Stars. Her bridge crew included officers from 20 different species, all working together under human leadership. It had taken months to work out the communication problems, but the results were impressive. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, a blue-skinned Centaurian named Veltar, "we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. Pirates are attacking a trade convoy." "Response time?" Kang asked. 12 minutes if we use the new jump drives," replied her navigation officer, a crystalline being whose species had joined humanity willingly. "Do it." The ship vanished from normal space and reappeared near the battle zone faster than any vessel in galactic history. The pirates, flying outdated hegemony ships, found themselves facing a combined fleet that included the latest human technology. The fight lasted exactly 3 minutes. No one was killed, but the pirates' ships were disabled and their weapons destroyed. Medical teams immediately began treating the wounded on both sides. "This is Admiral Kang of the Galactic Defense Force," she broadcast to the pirate ships. "You will be taken to the nearest rehabilitation center for processing. Your families will be notified of your location." This was the new way. Instead of execution or imprisonment, criminals were given counseling, job training, and a chance to start over. Many former pirates now worked as security guards or rescue specialists. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin walked through the research complex on Luna, humanity's moon. Around her, scientists from across the galaxy worked together on projects that would have been impossible just 2 years ago. The combination of human engineering and alien creativity was producing miracles. "The new medical nanobots are ready for testing," reported Dr. Kexela, an insectoid researcher whose species specialized in biological sciences. "They should be able to repair genetic damage in real time." "Excellent," Yoon replied. "Start with the volunteers from the cancer ward. If this works, we might be able to eliminate the disease entirely. This kind of cooperation was happening everywhere. Humans shared their technology freely, but alien species contributed their own unique knowledge and perspectives. The result was progress at a rate no one had thought possible. Commander Choi Min-ho piloted his patrol ship through the space lanes between Earth and Alpha Centauri. The Harmony's wing was one of hundreds of vessels that kept the trade routes safe and open. His crew included humans, aliens, and even a few former hegemony soldiers who had chosen to serve the new order. "Sir," called his communications officer, a young human woman named Kim Yoo-jin, "we're getting reports of unusual energy readings in the Vega system." "Pirates?" Choi asked. "Unknown. The signature doesn't match any known ship type." Choi frowned. After a year of peace, any unusual activity was cause for concern. "Set course for Vega. Alert the Admiral." But when they arrived in the system, they found something unexpected. A massive alien vessel hung in space, unlike anything in their databases. It was clearly damaged and sending weak distress signals. "New species," observed the ship's science officer, a multi-tentacled being from the outer regions. "Technology level appears advanced, but different from galactic norms." "Open a channel," Choi ordered. The alien ship responded with a complex mathematical sequence that their computers eventually decoded as a greeting. First contact protocols kicked in immediately, with translation programs working to establish communication. Within hours, they learned that the damaged vessel carried refugees from a distant galaxy. Their home had been destroyed by some kind of cosmic disaster, and they had traveled for centuries looking for a new place to live. "How many survivors?" Choi asked. "Approximately 2 million individuals," came the translated reply. "We seek only shelter until we can repair our vessel." Choi contacted Admiral Kang immediately. 2 million refugees was a significant challenge, but humanity had dealt with larger problems before. "Bring them to Earth," Kang decided. "We'll figure out the details later." This decision would have been impossible under the old galactic order. The hegemony would have either enslaved the newcomers or driven them away. Other species would have seen them as competition for resources, but humans saw them as people who needed help. Former Chancellor Vex Tai, now serving as cultural advisor to the Galactic Council, watched the refugee situation unfold with amazement. In his thousands of years of life, he had never seen such generosity towards strangers. "You realize this could be dangerous," he said to President Lee during their weekly meeting. "These aliens might have diseases, weapons, or hostile intentions." "They might," Lee agreed, "but they also might have knowledge, art, and friendship to offer. We won't know until we try." This was the fundamental difference between human thinking and galactic norms. Most species focused on potential threats. Humans focused on potential opportunities. The integration of the refugees proceeded smoothly. Human doctors worked around the clock to treat their injuries and diseases. Engineers studied their damaged technology, finding new solutions to old problems. Children from both species played together in the refugee camps, learning each other's games and languages. "Your people are remarkable," said the refugee leader, a being whose species looked like living crystals. "We have traveled to many worlds, but none welcomed us as you have." "That's what civilized people do," replied the human camp coordinator. "They help each other." As the year drew to a close, President Lee prepared for the annual State of the Galaxy address. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds would attend, including many species that had joined the galactic community since humanity's rise to power. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy in hundreds of languages. Lee stood at the podium, where Chancellor Vex Tai had once ruled through fear and tradition. Now it represented hope and progress. "Friends and fellow citizens," she began. "1 year ago, our galaxy was divided by fear, hatred, and endless conflict. Today, we stand united, in peace and cooperation. The applause that followed came from beings who had been enemies for millennia. Humans had given them something more valuable than technology or protection. They had given them hope. But our work is not finished, Lee continued. There are still worlds that suffer under tyranny, still species that live in poverty and fear, still problems that need solving. She gestured to a massive holographic display that showed the galaxy as it was now. Green indicators marked peaceful, prosperous worlds. Yellow showed areas still in transition. Red marked the few remaining trouble spots. Next year, we will eliminate the red zones entirely, not through conquest, but through compassion, not through force, but through friendship. In the audience, former enemies sat side by side. Hegemony officers served alongside the species they had once oppressed. Pirates worked with the merchants they had once robbed. Change was possible when people were given a chance to grow. As the ceremony ended, Admiral Kang received a priority message in her private communication device. It was from the deepest levels of human military command, encoded with the highest security protocols. Phase 3 authorized, the message read. Begin construction of the next 50 Colossus-class vessels. Exploration fleet preparations too, comments immediately. Kang smiled slightly. Humanity's peaceful expansion through their own galaxy was almost complete. But the universe was vast, and there were other galaxies out there. Some might be friendly, others might not be. Humanity would be ready for whatever they found. The galaxy had learned an important lesson over the past year. When humans said they came in peace, they meant it. But when they said they would protect the innocent, they meant that too, and they had the power to do both. The age of humanity was just beginning. The galaxy had been transformed, but it was only the first step in a much larger journey. Among the stars, other civilizations waited to learn what humans had to teach. Some would welcome the lessons, others would resist them. But in the end, progress was inevitable. Humanity had proven that strength and compassion could work together. That technology and wisdom could build something better than what came before. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended. From the beginning,